On to topic 4 now. We're going on to problem solving. Now, if you were to read your textbook, in the beginning they go over the strategy for solving word problems. Read it carefully, read it again, as you try to figure out what they want, what's going on, and sometimes a diagram, a chart, some kind of formula that might come up to help you deal with what you need to write out as an equation. And this is critical. That's what this is all about. Using algebra to solve word problems makes it much easier to solve. And then you physically go through the steps of solving the equation. Then you get an answer. And then how does that answer fit into what they're asking you for in the example? We call that the answer statement. One case, when you solve something, you might end up with time. 2 hours. That's what you get as an answer. But they're asking for distance. So you would have to know distance equals rate times time. So you now have the 2 hours, you multiplied by the rate, that would then give you the distance. So many cases what you end up with is what your answer statement would be. But in some cases like this, if they're asking for distance and you end up with time, that's why you need to look at that carefully and fit it in. Okay, well, let's get started. We're going to give you a chance to read this and then put it into an equation and then solve it. So 8 is added to a number. All right, we're going to say the number is x. So there's x, and we're going to add 8 to it. Now, this is a sum, and I'm indicating that by putting it in a parenthesis. And by the way, write these on the other side of the page, because if you want to try these again, then you won't have it all cluttered. You can look at it and then peek at your answer on the other side. And then this sum is doubled. So we put a 2 there. Now the results, that indicates an equal sign, is 11 less than the number. Well, we said the number was x and minus 11. Now that's our first equation. So let's just solve it. So 2x plus 16 equals x minus 11. Transpose the x, this gives us an x on this side. Transpose the plus 16 becomes a negative 16 on this side. So that's a negative 27. So they're asking you to find the number, and there is your answer. All right, let's bring it up and take a look at the next one. Three times the difference of a number and 2. Well, in this case, again, we're going to use x for the number, but it's a difference here. So there's the number and 2. Again, we need to put that in parentheses. 3 times this distance, this difference, I should say, is 3, is equal to 8 subtracted from twice the number. Well, twice the number, subtract 8. So this is 3x minus 6 equals 2x minus 8. Transpose the 2x, we end up with an x. Transpose the negative 6 on this side, it becomes a positive 6. Negative 2. And did something wrong. No, I checked it and that is correct. Now, let's just do a check here. If you're taking a test, you don't get to see the answer, whether it's right or not, until you check it. So x is a negative 2. So here we're going to put in a negative 2. A negative 2 to negative 2 is a negative 4. So this becomes a negative 12. And this is a negative 2. So this is a negative 4 and a negative 8, and that equals a negative 12. So that checks. Okay. Again, a good tool from Chapter 1. A college graduating class is made up of this many students. There are this many more girls than boys. Now, here's a case where we can actually, instead of using x, we can pick a letter from what we're dealing with. So what we don't know anything about is the number of boys. So we'll call that B. Well, what would be the number of girls then? It would be the number of boys plus 206. So now this, the girls plus the boys, equals that. So we get B plus 206 plus the number of boys equals 450. And they're starting us off a little easy here, so we can just see what goes on to put words into algebra. So this is going to be to be or not to be. Oh, yes. So we're going to subtract now 206 from both sides. So that gives me 444, I believe. Well, how about 444? Let's see. Again, talking and calculating is not the best, so it's 244. So 6 from 50 is 44, and 2 from 4 is 2. Okay, now to find out what B is, I divide both sides by 2. And I get B equals 122. Now if 122 is our number of boys, and that's what they're asking. Okay. Now if you wanted to figure out girls, you'd have to add 206 to that. That would be the girls, but they only are asking here for the boys. Okay. Now normally most folks would have to spend a little more time than what I'm doing, because you're going to read and reread it. I've read them already. So here we have a pipe. I'm going to make a pipe that is 22 feet long. Now the pipe is cut into two pieces. There's a shorter piece and a longer piece. The shorter piece is 7 feet shorter than the longer piece. So we can say the longer piece is L. How do I write the shorter piece then? Think about it. L minus 7. So there's my equation. This shorter piece plus the longer piece is 22. So L minus 7 plus L, the shorter piece plus the longer piece, equals 22. So I have 2L. Transpose this to the other side as a positive 7 becomes the 29. divide both sides by 2, I get L equals 14 1/2, or 14.5. And what do they want? I guess it's 14, either one. And that's the answer. What are the lengths of the longer piece? So L was the longer piece. Now to find the shorter piece, you'd have to subtract 7 from this. Okay. Now here we have a triangle, and it may not be proportional, but we can just make a triangle. It has 3 sides, A, B, and C. Now angle C is 18 degrees greater than angle B. So we're going to call angle B locus B. And C is B plus 18. Angle A is 4 times angle B. So this will just be 4 times B. And we know the angles of a triangle add up to 180. So in doing this, it will be side A, 4B, plus side B, which is B, plus angle C, which is B plus 18, and all of that equals 180. So we group like terms, 6B. We're going to subtract 18 from both sides and get 162, I believe. Divide both sides by 6, and we get B equals 27. Now, what is the measure of each angle? So here we have to put in what each angle is. B is 27. 4B is 108. And B plus 18 is 45. Now I've worked these out already. I'm just showing you again. You'd have to think about it, read it, make a little diagram, start plugging in your information, develop an equation, get the answer, and once you find B, you then plot that in there and get your other angles. Okay, for numbers 3 here, we're going to give you a little bit of background on consecutive integers, and then later we'll get to odd integers. So consecutive integers would be like 5, 6, and 7. But we want to convert that to algebra. Well, we don't know the first integer. That's going to be x. Now, how would I write, if this x is the first integer, how do I write 6? And the answer is x plus 1. And now 7, x plus 2. Okay. We're now going to go to even integers. Let's say 6, 8, 10. Now if x is my first integer, 6, how do I write 8? X plus 2. How do I write 10? X plus 4. So, algebraically speaking, these are any 3 consecutive integers. Algebraically speaking, these are any 3 even integers. Now we're looking for odd integers here. So let's set that up. That's 7, 9, 11. Now if 7 is our first integer, how do I write 9? The next odd integer. Now how many do we have to add to 7 to make it 9? 2. X plus 2. And how about how many do we have to add to 7 to get 11? X plus 4. Now this is where students often are wondering, how come if this is odd, it's the same as even? And the key is, if you start with an even integer, by adding 2 you get the next even integer. If you start with an odd integer, by adding 2 you get to the next odd integer. Okay. Now here it says hotel rooms are 2 consecutive odd integers. So the first one will be x. We don't know what it is. The next one's going to be x plus 2. And again, don't get this confused, because if this is odd, by adding 2 you get another odd. And we say they add up to 1380. So we get 2x, subtract 2 from this, and we get 1378, and then divide both sides by 2. We get x equals 689. Now, that's what one of the rooms is. The other room is 691. When you add 2 to this. So they're asking for the room numbers. So for this one, you have to have both. Okay, let's go on. Our last example here is when you open your book, the left and right pages are consecutive natural numbers. So if x is the first, the number that comes after it, I don't want to use a comma there, that's the first page. The next page is consecutive. We just add a 1 to it. So the total of these, 349. Add our integers up. Subtract 1. Divide both sides by 2. We get x equals 174. And the other one is 175. Okay, these weren't too difficult. And again, we could have spent a lot of time reading and rereading and figuring, but we wanted to give you a model of what's going on, and we're going to move on to our next section.